Hello, chess masters. Mike Amori. I have recovered from taking that picture of Aris in the Yankee uniform. As a Mets fan, it was very difficult to do. Anyway, a little center fork trick magic. This is from partially your work, some work from other WCA games that were played in the past, and some things I found online for you. Okay, center fork trick. If you don't know what that is by now, please leave the classroom. I'm only kidding. Please come in and ask me if you're not familiar by now. And it's funny, some real experienced players still kind of mess around with this in a way that might not always work out so well. So basically, in a position like the four knights that you're looking at, if white puts their bishop on b5, which is the normal move, you have to be careful with moves like bishop c5. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. But it does allow what we call the center fork trick, where the knight will take on e5, and if you go for the trick, you're going to obviously take the knight. And now how does white get their piece back? Pause the video if you don't know this. It's with the move d4. And when d4 is played, this bishop here is going to move, and you're going to take the piece back. Okay? It's funny that the more advanced you get in chess, like let's say this bishop moves to d6, and you will see a lot of times in this position that white will just take the knight and the bishop takes back. And why did white play this way? Simply to knock out black's center pawn. But it's funny, a lot of the pros in this position, they don't take yet. It's amazing. They play the move f4, and it's like a double fork trick, because you guys see how crazy this is becoming? If this knight moves, I mean, it's getting attacked 100 times, but if it moves, do you see another fork trick coming? Yeah, it's incredible. These center fork tricks can pop up all over the place. But let me show you what happened with Hannah and Luca. Yes, the famous Luca. He's been featured in every video this term. So he actually allowed the center fork trick, and I'm not sure that he was up early playing hockey and allowed it, or he just, said, okay, I don't care, I'll go for the center fork trick. So Miss Hannah takes, there's the trick, and then he plays the move bishop to b4, which is not as common as some of the other moves. The idea of bishop to b4 is it puts this nasty pin on the knight, and knowing that, white is going to get their piece back, and in this case, there's a pawn to be taken here. Now, this pattern I've seen a whole bunch of times before, and here white will take care not to lose something on c3. They could play a move like queen to d3, and then if you start taking things, like if you take with the knight, the pawn will take, and this bishop here is going to have to move, correct? I mean, it's being attacked, and it looks like you have these really bad structures for white. I mean, stop and count the material for a second. What do you see? I mean, it's equal, right? 7 on 7, a pair of bishops for each team. But some students will look at this and go, oh, come on, white's doing really badly. Their structure stinks. It's not that clear, because black doesn't have any development at all here. And then, moves like this, bishop to a3, these are very thematic. I love the word thematic. I really like to pronounce that TH sound. And watch this. When you push that bishop there, what do you notice? Yeah, it's stopping the black king from castling. And you have to be very careful as black how to get your pieces out here. And notice that, trying to break this strong pawn in the middle can be very, very dangerous when the black king is still there. I mean, white can just play moves like castle, and if this line ever opens up, a rook is going to get there. Keep that thought in your mind, okay? So this center fork trick, with the way Luca played it, if Hannah had played the move queen to d3, they would have had some line like that, which is pretty good for white. I mean, I guess it's playable for both sides, but I don't think you really want to go into this for black. However, when I saw them with this position, I got a little nosy as usual, and I actually asked, after knight takes e4 here, I actually asked Hannah to just castle her king. And the reason I did that is I wanted to see if she understood or could play with the compensation that she would get if Luca takes everything, which he did. I actually asked him to take everything, and let me show you what I mean. So he takes the knight, the pawn takes, the bishop takes, and rather than move the rook, which is perfectly fine for white to do, I asked Anna to play the move bishop a3. So it's exactly what I showed you guys before, except in this position, after bishop takes rook, queen takes, it's a little bit different because white has given up some material. They gave up an exchange and a pawn. However, it is incredibly dangerous for black here to get the rest of their pieces out. So you can see that if you move this pawn here on d7 to try to get the bishop out, the chance that this pawn will take, whether en passant or straight away, my accent, French accent, is so bad. Oh my goodness, en passant. Heaven only knows what it sounds like in French. If you take that pawn, it's going to open the e-file, correct? That can be a problem. So Luke is sitting here playing this position as black. Well, how do I get my light square bishop into the game? And he plays a very, very logical move. He plays b6. And I put b6 on the computer at home, and I literally went into the kitchen to get some tea because the kettle was whistling. I'm not making this up. When I came back, I saw the computer said it was like +6. And I had a grandmaster on a video once tell me that he was looking at some line, he went to get tea, and he came back and he said, oh, this is actually playable. This is exactly what happened to me here. Do you know that black is completely lost in this position? Amazing. You can try to pause your video and find a move that just completely wins. But when I saw the computer's suggestion, I said, like, how does that win? But it's over. Pause your video. Spend a little time thinking. Let me know what you come up with. Okay, watch this. You ready? Watch this. Game over. Rook e1. How on earth can one simple rook move end the game? The problem here for black is how to continue the game. If you continue with the idea of playing bishop to b7, then this move e6 comes, and it's deadly because you're threatening two ways to open the game with a check. If you play the move queen to g5, which looks really nice because it protects this pawn here on g7. Because let's go back for a second after e6. I forgot to show you something. Let me turn, oh my God. Let me turn on the highlights. And that's not even all of them. Try to follow the bouncing ball here. You see the pawn? So you guys see the two takes, which open the e-file with a check. That's kind of one threat or two threats. Do you see how the bishop here on b5 is pinning the d-pawn? That's something else that's bad for black. I don't need to talk about this guy over here on a3. This is a monster. Monster. Laser. You see the queen on a1. She's attacking g7. I didn't even bother pointing at the rook because it would have been too many green arrows. You guys see all that? It's absolutely incredible. So if you play g5, which looks nice, I mean, you're guarding one of the important squares and you're threatening mate in 1. Okay, this is mate in 3. It's incredible. Definitely stop your video and prove to me that you found mate in 3, or tree, as my grandmother from Kingston, Jamaica would say, tree. And my grandmother from Northern England, free. Or actually, she's closer to London. Free. Isn't it amazing? The language. Mate in 3. Check. I don't know what you do with your king. King d8. Simply rook. Check. Rook takes. And let's turn the pawn into a rook just to have some fun. It's crushing. Isn't it amazing? So let's go back. After pawn to b6. Rook e1. What can black play? It's amazing. It's like zugzwang, and the board is filled with pieces. It's really an incredible position. Let me show you one more idea. What if you took your rook and put it on g8 to guard one of those squares that we talked about? Same move, pawn e6, and everything is going to open up. If you take that pawn, you can just simply take with the rook check. Remember, the d pawn is pinned, and that king, he's going to have to come to f7. He's not going to live a healthy life. It's not going to be pretty. Queen is either going to get trapped or taken, probably just going to get mated. So that's really bad, right? So let's go back and see if we can find any other suggestion after the move rook to e1. What if we try maybe pawn to c6? That looks really good. You're blocking out the bishop and, you know, gaining a tempo, except guess what? The same exact move comes. And you can play around with this at home if you like and see if you can come up with anything for black. I couldn't. You know, if you take it this way, this looks really good. You can take the pawn here with a check and pick up a rook or something, or maybe not. But it's not the best move in the position. Can you find it? Really strong. You have to look at the whole board. Yeah, Big Mama hiding down here on a1. It's so tempting to take this pawn and put the king in check and attack a rook. But no need to. Just queen takes g7 and black is kind of cooked. You don't want to take this bishop because the rook goes, the king moves, give a little check, king moves and takes. Okay? All right, so what is the moral of the story here? You need to be a little careful with that center fork trick. Make sure you know it and how to avoid it if you don't want to see it, but also be able to think out of the box. Okay, let me show you the game continuation really fast. So after Luca played b6, Hannah didn't see that rook e1. I don't blame her. I mean, I had no idea. I didn't see it. Her move looked really good. I mean, she centralized her queen, but then Luca really played well at this point. He played pawn to c5, which hits the queen with a tempo. Hannah put it in, and then he made a very smart decision to try to get the queens off the board. And once they did, she makes these trades with him. His king took. Rook to e1, but it's a totally different story because what he did is he hand castled. He put the rook under his king, and here already white's in big trouble because that material is going to start to pay off. I think Hannah played bishop to c4. Luca just tucked his king in. She lifted her rook. I mean, I give her credit. She played like really well, but it's too much material at this point. He just developed his last piece. You know, he's up in exchange. The bishop here is really strong, and he went on to win the game, but very, very instructive, okay? I'm going to leave it at this. Please make sure you understood the ideas, the center fork trick, this bishop a3 idea where you give up material to keep the king in the middle. All right, let's go Mets. Let's go WCA. And that's it for now. See you for week 8.